Welcome to Spotlight Episode 2 featuring AndyMark. Andy and Mary Baker from AndyMark will be on to talk more about the origins of AndyMark, where they're headed, and how they got there as well, too. And, of course, some of the interesting dynamics. Andy and Mary and I go back for a really long time in first, and it's great to always catch up with them. At the time of recording, saw them at IRI a little bit before that, so great to be able to sit down with them for a little while, talk more about AndyMark, learn more about their dynamics and challenges as a company and what they're looking forward to in future seasons as well. So enjoy Episode 2 from Spotlight. This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. If you are a college student or recent graduate looking for an incredible internship, take a look at Stryker. Stryker provides a housing stipend, great pay, and an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art medical technology equipment. Discover why so many First alumni are coming to Stryker for their internship or career at careers.stryker.com. Discover MSOE, where hands-on learning today can lead to real-world applications tomorrow, including their We Energy STEM Center built to support FIRST teams. Head on over to msoe.edu/visit to see a virtual tour and schedule your campus visit today. Welcome to Episode 2 of Fun Spotlight, shining the light on AndyMark. AndyMark has been a cornerstone in the FIRST community for nearly 20 years, where their mission is to strive to develop innovative products and outstanding service while inspiring their customers and making a positive impact in their community. Starting with Andy Baker and Mark Coors out of their homes in 2004, AndyMark now employs several dozen employees in a beautiful 80,000 plus square foot facility. Currently, AndyMark is one of the leading distributors and makers of robotics parts within the robotics mobility and competition market, shipping to over 70 countries. Welcome on, Andy and Mary. Great to see you two.
Hey, Tyler.
Hi, Tyler. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and we just got to see each other about a week and a half ago at IRI, so it's great to have you on. And I do got to say, we go way back, in the first ethos of what it is in the first boomer space. I want to tell a really quick story, by the way, of where I was a student, and Andy, you were a drive coach back in the day for 45 on the Technocats, and I just want to share something I remember about you. One of the first memories that I have of you, it was about 20 years ago, but it was how you approached pre-match strategy, Andy. This is something that always still sticks in my head, that based on like your notoriety back then, like everybody, as a student, we're like, okay, let's hear what Andy has to say in a pre-match meeting, right? And instead, you took the time to look at me. I remember this in particular, say, you know what, Tyler, what do you want to do first? And you listen to what I wanted to do as a student as an idea in a pre-match strategy before you presented any strategy ideas. And that's just something that's always stuck with me as my first memory of you, Andy. And I think it's something that a lot of drive coaches could learn from. So I just something that's I always remember about you every time I see you. That and a 2002 red card in IRI, but we won't talk about that. It's okay.
I'm glad you've forgotten about the red card. Yeah.
This man drove up and blocked him and grabbed that full away.
Yeah. If you look, if you go through an alliance strategy meeting, most of the time, people want to do the right thing. People want to do what each other's robot and team want to do. So there's 90% of the time the other team gets to do what they want to do. So only about 10% of the time we really need to correct it. So I'm very hands off during alliance strategy and all that. And this year I was back on the field as a field coach for Technocats for the first time in I think 11 years.
Oh wow!
And our human player was our strategy negotiator, and he would do it all. And if he did something wrong, I might say, hey, could you do it this way instead? Just try not to be so forceful or whatever. But I was just coaching him doing the same thing. That was kind of fun during the time here in Indiana.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you were back behind the glass. That's awesome to hear on that. So
yeah.
Look forward to seeing other things for that too. So, hey, on today's episode, by the way, we're going to provide a brief overview of the history of AndyMark and how it's helping the FIRST community, including how AndyMark got started and advice for maybe starting entrepreneurs, key milestones in AndyMark's history, what it's like for two people to live together and run a business together, and what that dynamic must be like. I'm sure there's some interesting stories there. And then what's to come for AndyMark, including new partnerships and how it may impact those of us who are in FIRST. So, Mary and Andy, let's get started and let's talk about how AndyMark got started. And then I'd love to just hear maybe one or two advice for like young entrepreneurs or people who are starting out in entrepreneurship of lessons learned on your end too.
Okay, I'll start.
Mhm.
How AndyMark got started was that I was well on Technocats back in 2000 2001. We started giving away designs that were completed after the season was finished, and so we got a lot of notoriety. The Technocast did over the years 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and then one of the students, DJ Fluck on
Yeah.
Technocats, nominated me for Woody Flowers Award, and I got a lot of attention as the guy that helped coordinate that design to be released. And so shortly after that, we started getting feedback from teams saying, we like your designs, but we don't have access to a CNC operation here. Could you just sell us this design? And so that got us thinking. And so I shopped the idea around a little bit, talked to some companies, kind of realized that it's best for us
Mhm.
to stay here in Kokomo, Indiana, not move to go work at another company. And that's a short story to make out of a long story. But
Right. Well, and this was one of the very first compromises that we
Yeah.
made, right? And so he said, at the time I was a stay-at-home mom. I had given up my career as a marketing professional. And so this was a big compromise. He said, if you support me with building this company, then I'm going to support you being a stay-at-home mom. This was the great compromise. I didn't really think it was going to work, frankly. I'll be real honest.
Yeah.
But the key was I really had her unconditional support for AndyMark, as not only supporting me, but really helping out the company where she could.
Right.
She had marketing background. She had some customer service background, some with working at the hospital, working with different clients and such.
And Mark and Emily's background,
Yeah.
the four of us, it was really it was ideal because Emily had accounting background, so she did the books. Mark with his design, Andy with more of the entrepreneurship, and then mine with the customer service and marketing background. So the four of us working together those first 3 or 4 years, without any other, we made a really good team. So all of our skill sets matched very nicely.
And something that we'll mention a little bit too is Mark Kors, who's one of the founders of AndyMark, and we'll talk about his retirement, and I think it was 2016 as well too. But Andy or Mary, I'd love to just hear, like, so if I remember correctly, you and Mark were both working at Delphi. Is that right?
Yeah, we were both at Delphi. I think we would see each other a little bit at work. Okay, so Delphi in Kokomo in the 90s, there were 12,000 employees there. So
wow. Okay.
If like if you had a relative that worked at Delphi, there's probably a likely I didn't know them. I mean, most of the people there I didn't know, but surprisingly, I would see Mark because we were in like adjacent departments. But I only got to know Mark by both of us being recruited to be mentors on 45 on Technocats.
Sure.
Going into the 1998 season, Delphi did some mentor transition. We were the new guys going into 98, and we had a magical year, and we won the world championships in 98. So that kind of solidified us as mentors on the team for a while. So with that success, we also saw some, a lack of parity between the teams that were the successful teams and the teams that really didn't have any strong mentorship or resources. So we saw the need at that time to make a company that would supply simple things like even like Omni wheels. There wasn't a place you could buy an Omni wheel or a gearbox or a aluminum sprocket or a battery cable at all. You had all those things teams were making on their own, and it was not very easy.
One thing I want to ask is, Mary, you mentioned that, overall there's a lot of great compatibility and chemistry in starting AndyMark, but I'd love to hear about, were there any major pain points starting out a business that way, and how did you get through those, and maybe any advice to people who are struggling with the similar things? Maybe even me, who knows, right?
Yeah, it was hard. Okay, so for 3 years, we didn't pay ourselves anything. Yeah. I think both Mark and I we put in $5,000 each to build up some inventory, and then we put all of our net income back into the company as inventory. And then after 3 years, I pretty much said, this is wearing me down. I gotta go full time AndyMark, or we're done. And I can't do this anymore. And we just cash flowed my salary, and that worked. But no, those first 3 years, we didn't really have any. I didn't have any free time. It was kind of crazy. I remember watching football. I mean, I like watching football at home, and I'd be watching football, and the girls and I would be like assembling macadam wheels or something on the dining room table. Mm-hmm. It was,
and we depended on, we didn't depend, but we appreciated, and we got help from local first teams. Even when we moved into Inventrek, which was our first offsite location outside of our homes, teams came, and because they knew that our order fulfillment was slow, and we needed to assemble some parts and products. And I remember Scott Miller and his group, 829. Yep. There were students there. There were students from Purdue. They'd show up on a Saturday or whatever evening. You'd give them pizza. You'd feed some college student pizza and soda, and they were happy.
That's how Jerry Budd started with this. He just would come over and help us out. And eventually, I called him up when he was on his honeymoon and asked him if he wanted to work for us. But that's another story.
Yeah. Right. But so we really appreciated the support of the community, and anybody who's in first understands that community responsiveness, and it was great. But we did a lot of stuff. I mean, those battery plugs, I don't know how many hours I would put stickers on battery plugs that we'd put in kit of parts. How many of those did we? I mean, like thousands and thousands, and I literally put stickers on every one of those, and we did that several months in advance. But it was an all hands on deck in the Baker household, and I know the Coors did a lot too.
That's a great segue to go into. I'd love to hear more about some key components over AndyMark's history, and I'd also love to hear about becoming a crown supplier with First, that history and that journey too.
Gosh, okay, so some of the key components early on. I think one of the things we always wanted to do was make products that fix problems. Sure. And I think the first one. The first one that we really did that fixed a problem was, I mean, there was a lot of them, but the battery cable AM-0009, that was a huge product, and we've sold that thing for, I mean, we sell it today. It was one of our first products, and the problem was lugs on those 6-gauge wires would come loose, and the lugs that first would put in the kit, they had some sleeve lugs that you would crimp, and then they had another lug that you had to screw down. Well, that was a mistake. They should not be putting the screw down lugs in the kit of parts. Teams didn't know how to use them. So yeah, that's a good video.
These are all great. Blast from the past.
Right. So the providing a cable to a team that didn't have the proper crimp to make the lug to 6-gauge wire connection was a key thing that helped them perform well on the field. Because if your crimp isn't good on your battery, you're going to lose power and you're out of luck. Other problems we fixed were lightweight sprockets with aluminum sprockets. You couldn't find them on the market before we had them. The only place you could find them they were very large, like this big. And that was the go-kart market, and those were too large for our market. Shifting gearboxes and the AM Planetary wasn't the most reliable product. It would jam up sometimes on teams, but it was the predecessor to the Versa Planetary. It was the predecessor to the sport gearboxes.
Well, and becoming a crown supplier for First was very important, and that happened we strive to support the FIRST programs, right? Obviously, they're our biggest customer. And so doing whatever we can to help them, some of the early things that Mark Kors would go out and offer engineering support for several weeks when it came to game design. So that was one of the things. Obviously, the kit of parts, providing items for the kit of parts early on. And then that evolved also some of our Crown Supplier sponsorship. First Choice. We did that for, and we continue to do that, to offer that service to teams. So there are a number of ways that we like to contribute to FIRST and support FIRST and its programs, because obviously it's important to us personally, but we believe in the program, right? And so we're willing to give our time and our money to FIRST.
And we love the program, but admittedly, that's the way we get our name in front of the team, so they know who we are, they know what we can provide to them to make their seasons better.
Something I want to ask you as well too is, you mentioned that FIRST is your largest customer, but who are some of your other customers, or how do you branch out outside of FIRST?
Gosh, early on with AndyMark, I have a lot of stories where we had mentors on teams who would utilize a gearbox or a sprocket or something on the team they're mentoring in their day job. I know two occasions where one of the guys was working as a mentor on an Orlando FRC team, and he used a gearbox on the It's a Small World ride for one of the little things that does this in Walt Disney World. And then another guy, so Mecanum wheels themselves. We came out with Mecanum wheels in 2006 after Team 357 really introduced Mecanum wheels to FIRST through their Gesture Drive project, which I thought was, I think it's the most impactful product that we've had in all of FIRST. FRC, maybe not so much, but FTC, you see Mecanum wheels everywhere.
Oh, everywhere,
I think without our effort to start Mecanum wheels, we wouldn't be where we are in FTC, especially. But so what happened with Mecanum wheels is we were the only place to sell a commercially available Mecanum wheel back in 2006, 2007, and worldwide there were people that would come get our Mecanum wheels. And so
it's the market outside of FIRST.
Yes. Okay. So we saw a lot of different teams in robot competitions in Southeast Asia starting to use our Mecanum wheels, and then there are Southeast Asian companies that would copy or improve upon our Mecanum wheels and make them better. One of those companies that started that was Nexus, and they do a pretty good job with that right now. And then there's a guy that was a tech director on the Jay Leno show who built Jay Leno a Mecanum wheel chair.
So to answer your question, Tyler, other markets really have grown. So you do have college. So students who have are alumni from FIRST, right? They have senior projects. They're on other teams. Maybe it's the Mars rover. There are a lot of teams collegiately. So we see that spread of our market. We also have at Purdue University, with one of their electrical classes, we provide a robot that's actually part of the curriculum. What class is that?
Well, it's ME 375.
Yeah.
It's a mechanical engineering class that teaches electrical control systems to people like me who are mechanical engineers but not so good at control stuff. So it's we use our skidder robot for that project. And
then we have other customer, it really is just a matter of anymore the benefit of Google and doing a search, and someone's looking for a Mecanum, looking for certain parts and products. So right now we see a big wide range of where our customers, and sometimes we wonder what they're up to when they purchase the products that they do. But it is nice that we do sell outside the FIRST market.
If I remember correctly, a few years ago, you unveiled a robot that you were working with law enforcement agencies with, or a supplier for that. Is that something you're still creating?
Yeah, we've sold maybe, gosh, close to 200 of these robots that are for Transcend Robotics.
Sure.
Transcend Robotics. It's a recon robot going into it that goes into a situation, gets eyes and ears on a situation that's tough, and it provides a non-lethal engagement situation or non-lethal engagement solution for an officer or a team of officers to de-escalate a situation. It saves lives for the law enforcement officers, and it saves lives for the person who's in trouble. Perpetrators don't get killed, and officers don't get killed. And we've saved lives with these robots.
Yeah.
So we are a supplier then for Transcend. So that product continues.
Very cool. I want to cover a couple more things while I still have time. Love to hear about how AndyMark got involved with FTC more, because if you don't know, your company is directly involved with some of the game design as well too, and of course the supplier for the FTC sets as well. So tell me a little bit more about that backstory and maybe how that's not to use the word you just did, but transcended over the years as well.
Sure. We started by selling the FTC perimeter. FTC had a design they wanted us to sell, so we sold that design, and then we actually improved upon the design and kind of made a brand new design for the perimeter. We started selling soft tiles shortly after that, so teams would start coming to us for really like event setup, or if they wanted to start a team, they wanted a perimeter first, would list us as one of the approved perimeter suppliers. Then I think it was 2011, we started selling racquetballs, I think,
for one of the games.
Mm-hmm. The game elements. They needed a distributor for that because they needed a consistent racquetball for all the teams.
Sure.
So back in early 2010, 11, 12, they had field plans where the teams would have to make their own field components, right, and the event organizers would have to make their own field components for the teams to play on.
Oh wow!
And so if you were good at following a print package and making these things, and maybe you had a shop class at your school or something, it wasn't that hard. But that lack of consistency from your practice field to the competition field was very important, and not always met. That consistency wasn't there. And heaven forbid if the event organizers didn't build their field right, and it wasn't to spec, they would not hear the end of it. So I think it was the fall of 2014, they asked us to make the field components for Cascade Effect. And since then we've been the field component supplier for FTC. And we're working on one right now. I mean, that's our biggest job this summer, is getting all the components right and all the things fixed and set up for distribution for FTC field components.
And AndyMark does handle in some sort of like a consulting with the game design committee, right, in regards to providing feedback on what's actually like, hey, this is realistic or not realistic sort of thing. Is that true?
Yeah. Gosh, up until maybe a year and a half ago, that project really was coordinated and ran by Danny Blau.
Yep.
And he was a great AndyMark employee. He went on to working on really cool things at Milwaukee Tool up in Wisconsin. So he's not on this project anymore. So we're pretty much the engineering and manufacturing service to the game design committee. We're not on game design committee. We are pretty much at their service to do what they wish. So there's three entities in that process. There's first headquarters, there's game design committee for FTC, and then there's AndyMark that really just executes and evaluates and performs as they want us to. So they give us a budget, and they don't know all the numbers and everything. So we say, hey, this is costing a lot. Having that many game pieces costs this much. You might want to back it off or something. But they give us a lot of direction, and we just kind of do it. We do what we can to meet their needs, really.
like to jump a little bit back into the history of AndyMark and kind of go into what I would kind of consider the modern era of AndyMark. And that was when Mark Kors announced he's going to be stepping down and retiring. So I'd love to hear about, from an entrepreneurial perspective myself, kind of switching from like a partnership into more of a sole proprietorship. I'm sure you don't run your business as a sole proprietorship, but probably, I'm guessing, I'd love to hear too if it's an LLC or S Corp or how you do that. But talk to me about how that transition went. And then I'd love to hear between you two, like how has that evolved with your relationship moving forward in these last 5-6 years?
We are an S Corp. We got ourselves set up back when we first started the company that way.
Sure.
That's so yeah. So Mark and I were talking about him retiring. Well, he was talking about retiring for a few years before he retired. He's about 14, 15 years older than me.
Yeah.
So his kids were having grandkids. He was wanting to take more time away from the business. He was wanting to tinker on some things. And so it just worked out well that he retired in June of 2016. Sadly, he was diagnosed with ALS in January of 2017, 6 months later. So it was he had 2.5 years after his retirement that it wasn't the best retirement, obviously, because he had grand plans to do these really cool things with his family and his grandkids. He was actually tinkering and working part-time at Kokomo Opalescent Glass because he liked to help out that company also, and that was a neat opportunity for him. So for what happened during that time for AndyMark is that really Mary was always considered a leader of the company, as was Emily, as was Mark. It was like a foursome for years until Emily retired and then Mark retired.
Sure.
So Mary is in the same role that she has been since we began. Really, I think the title has changed maybe, but she's still part of the ownership team of AndyMark.
Right. And the difference from a partnership as opposed to Andy running the business, it is just it's a lot easier for Andy, I think. You do take into consideration as a partnership, you have to take into consideration the partner, and there weren't necessarily conflicts, but there were times when you would have to stop and
There's compromise, right?
Right. There's a lot of those compromise. So, I mean, it really was, it was a nice opportunity now for Andy to take the helm of the company. And he always was, that's the Andy and Mark worked together, and they worked together very well. But I think that it was just a little bit easier for Andy now.
Well, and I would think too, being at that time, over a decade in as well, that being more established probably makes that transition a bit easier, right? Than, if all of a sudden something were to happen to a partner like a year or two in for things, looking at AndyMark, I would think your positioning and where you were at as a company was probably at a much healthier state for something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that is certainly a pivotal point in the history of AndyMark, right? So this was the time when Mark stepped down, and the company continued to move forward and along the path that Mark helped prepare. So it was a nice transition.
How would you say that your relationship with each other has evolved in perspective of AndyMark?
I would say when we first got married in '94, we would not have been able to work together back then.
True.
I think we were pretty immature, young. Well, we were in our 20s. We weren't necessarily very immature, but it's just as you get older, you learn that you can do these things that you didn't think you were earlier. And I think I think also out of necessity, we've just kind of learned to work together as not only married couple, but also business partners, right?
Right.
And I often tell people that she runs the house and I run the business. So
that's essentially the rule.
Yeah.
That Andy, when it comes down to it, and the decision making, when it comes to the house, it's if that we're at an impasse, then my vote counts too.
Sure.
And the same with the business. And I think we respect each other. Respect, compromise are important. And it's not that we don't have disagreements, but somehow, and it wasn't even conscious. We never really sat down and talked about, these are the rules, right? We're not going to talk about work after these hours or this and that, but it kind of has evolved into that. So it's just a natural progression of our relationship and of the business. So it's been nice. And yes, hindsight, I would never have told you that I would be able to work with my husband, but
Sure.
it's been a great partnership.
I remember vividly driving to Cedar Point for a vacation, and we were just starting to hire people at AndyMark, and we took like a day or two at Cedar Point. So we were driving to Cedar Point, like how do I convey what Mark and I want in our minds onto other people's work ethics and such. And so her and I actually wrote our team goals and team mission in the van on the way to Cedar Point.
Nice.
And not one word of those have changed since that time, like 15 years ago.
Right. And with the girls in the back of the van, who knows how much they contributed to that conversation.
A ton.
You know, and it is a family affair, right?
Yeah.
You know, our girls are all alumni of FIRST programs, and it's been great. It's who would have known 18 years ago that we could have built a company like this, but it is very gratifying to know that we have a great company, employ some fabulous employees, and our customer base is incredible. So yeah, it's very gratifying.
And I just want to say too, you mentioned your daughter as well too, who I think have forged an awesome path of their own. And if you didn't watch IRI, Rachel, I think is an absolutely phenomenal MC. And I don't even think a lot of people even necessarily correlated that you know that is your daughter as well too. And Rachel, to me, has become one of my favorite MCs in FIRST. Her delivery is just fantastic. So kudos to of course her and the rest of your family as well too for forging their own path as well and making themselves stand out in the FIRST community. I think it's great.
Well, Tyler, that means a lot. You're a premier MC also. Mary and I had a great time with you.
Not
this
as much
year.
anymore, but yeah.
Well, no, I think you kind of showed your true value when you were at the Las Vegas Regional this year. And you had to kind of save the event by stretching for an hour during downtime when the kids on the teams created a situation that actually broke the software for the Las Vegas Regional. But that's another story.
I think it was more than an hour.
It was
it was at least an hour. Yeah, that was an interesting time, but a great time, definitely for sure. So a couple last things to talk about here is one of them is moving into your new space and new facility. And the video I have up is actually your previous one, if I remember correctly, because this is the Harlem Shake era. Great dancing, by the way. But you moved you've been in a couple spaces now, and now this one is your 80,000 square foot facility. Plenty of space for pallets of fuel, I know. So I'm looking forward to hearing just more about how that's been working out for you, and what does that mean for the future of from AndyMark in regards to space utilization as well.
Well, we don't want to move again. So
Sure.
And that was part of, we had with our last facility, and it was 24,000 square feet, and that was 2018. And we were even leasing space at that time just to store things. It wasn't fuel, but to store things.
Like glyphs and such.
Right.
Yeah.
So with our next building purchase, we did look and we said, okay, just like we had previously, we said, okay, we're not going to do this again. We're going to have this space allocated. And the buildings are full now, but we do have some other tenants, and we have the opportunity to grow for, whatever the future of AndyMark has in store. We don't know, right? 5 years from now, 4 years ago, when we went in there, we said, gosh, we would never use all of this space. and occasionally our operations director, Mark Stoltz, will say, hey, I need some more space.
Sadly, right now it's full because we have 5 tenants total in the building that AndyMark
awesome.
is in.
So we do have that, and knowing that we do have tenants in the building, and knowing that we have the opportunity for growth for whatever the future may hold.
Yeah, I was at your new now, right, facility right when you moved in. Actually, I was there, and yeah, if anybody has a chance, I'm going to assume you're still welcoming visitors to your
Absolutely.
Yeah, so make sure please stop by. I would say, at least from my end, it was really cool to see just how the operations work, where everything is. I'm always an admirer of just how logistics work in general. So if you want to see something really cool, I really do highly advise, if you get a chance to drive to Kokomo, Indiana, to go check out the AndyMark facility as well. I do want to ask, as we start to wrap up, what does the future look like for AndyMark? We talked about, you're in your large space now for things. I do want to mention that you just announced a partnership with Shore Drive Specialties as well too. So I'd love to hear about anything else in that regard. Like what's kind of the future look like for AndyMark, or what's maybe at least your vision for the future of AndyMark?
Well, we still want to make great parts for first teams. That's one of our main goals, is as product makers for first teams. We want to help make teams keep their team sustainable, so it's not so hard to build a robot. And it's back 20 years ago, before any off-the-shelf companies made parts, it was hard to do. So we want to continue to grow first, so teams can have a good time building their robots. So yeah, our partner, our distributorship deal with Shore Drive Specialties, SDS, is something that we're really, really happy with. We want to work to maintain that position so that they want to sell through AndyMark. We have a great customer service team and a business office that can handle the load of people that give a lot of requests for new orders, or where's my order, and all that stuff, and demand. So we will work hard to make those products get out to the teams in a fast way and an efficient way. We're always developing new products. We actually have the highest number of engineers on staff now, and we have a new engineering director, Micah Caddick, and so she is leading a great team of engineers that's doing lots of things. We had three new engineers are starting either recently or will be starting. We have Jonathan Lane, who is a new control systems engineer for us. We have Peyton Young. I think, Tyler, you know Peyton.
I do, yeah.
Peyton. He's been around for a long time, but he's now on our staff, and he's one of our focused FTC engineers.
And that was important to us when we had that engineering. We are FRC centric in many ways. And so when we hired that and posted that position, we made sure that we hired someone with First Tech Challenge experience, because there's a lot of growth potential in that market. And you talk about the future of AndyMark. I mean, we see a lot of opportunities for FTC and products in that area.
So I do want to ask in regards to products. I'm sure you can't necessarily speak to some of them right now, but I'm assuming, are there going to be new products for both FRC and FTC? And when can we maybe expect release dates for some of those products?
Well, we always want to give the earliest release date we can, but we're not done with. We don't usually release something until we're almost done, or we have product that's almost in the door. We don't like saying, "Hey, here's a new product and it's coming in 6 months," with regard to being available.
Sure.
So, as we get closer to September 10th, FTC kickoff, we're going to have some new FTC products, and some of them are going to be. I think some will be a large impact. I think we're really happy about many of them coming out. So I don't think we're going to do we're not really sure what our strategy for releasing those are yet.
I'm eager to hear what he has to say. I was waiting to hear how he was going to answer this question.
Yeah. I'm eager about the product, but we haven't got a plan for exactly how we're going to release them. Lately, it's been the products get released as they come available, but that's not really been up to me in the last couple of years. So we'll as as usual, Tyler, as we get closer to kickoffs for each event or for each program, we will have new products come out.
So just to clarify, there are also new FRC products that are AndyMark specific coming out too?
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing both of those programs and the new products that you have coming out for them. Very excited to see with that as well too. Well, Andy and Mary, I just want to thank you so much for coming on to tell us more about the history of AndyMark. Conversations that we always have, there's always probably another 3 hours that we can talk about with these things, and I'm sure at some point we'll get to some of that. But I appreciate at least giving the overview that we did and hearing more about it, and excited to see what is the future of AndyMark and that continue to go. And I just want to thank you for all the service that AndyMark does to the FIRST community and over the years. I mean, you're a business, no doubt, but it doesn't mean that you're not providing a fantastic service to all of us in FIRST as well too. So thank you.
Thanks, Tyler.
You're welcome.
We've enjoyed this. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, and make sure you check out AndyMark at AndyMark.com and all their social channels, including now on TikTok. I've seen that a few times. And I also want to shout out, too, I've really been a huge fan of your How Do I series on YouTube as well, too. So make sure you check out those videos on YouTube under AndyMark. And hopefully we'll see some more Lunch with Andy in the future as well, too. Looking forward to those.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Tyler.
All right. Thank you. That will be it for a fun spotlight. Check out more shows on youtube.com/First Updates Now. This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. Discover MSOE, where hands-on learning today can lead to real-world applications tomorrow, including their We Energy STEM Center built to support FIRST teams. Head on over to msoe.edu/visit to see a virtual tour and schedule your campus visit today. If you're a college student or recent graduate looking for an incredible internship, take a look at Stryker. Stryker provides a housing stipend, great pay, and an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art medical technology equipment. Discover why so many FIRST alumni are coming to Stryker for their internship or career at careers.stryker.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/First Updates Now. Join our Discord at discord.gg/First Updates Now. And check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.